So touching on Jenny's earlier points when she was introducing the session on attempts by Biden to build a multilateral alliance against China, I think this is absolutely the right analysis. And in the past few months, we've seen a global expansion of US policy towards China on a very significant scale. And I'd like to touch just briefly on two of these developments, and that's by NATO and by Britain. At the end of last year, NATO published a new report entitled NATO 2030, United for a New Era. And it very clearly reveals the direction of travel that NATO is taking. The document's chief stated concern is how to maintain Western dominance in a world where China is rising economically. NATO's answer is to expand its orientation to the Asia-Pacific to deal with the impact of the emerging China. Ahead of the report's launch, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that China poses, quote, important challenges to our security. And he added that China is coming close to us. The report itself continued the Trumpian approach that NATO should treat China as a, quote, full spectrum systemic rival rather than a purely economic player. The US is already ramping up its military presence in the region. The NATO document also has a strong political message that we've heard before from the US in its description of China and Russia as, quotes, revisionist powers seeking to reshape the world on their own authoritarian model. The document says, quotes, the scale of Chinese power and global reach poses acute challenges to open and democratic societies, particularly because of that country's trajectory to greater authoritarianism and an expansion of its territorial ambitions. So that's clear, the NATO position. Now, turning to Britain, last month, our government announced a new integrated review of security, defence, development and foreign policy. This is an unprecedented scope of coverage in this review. And this review projects and promotes a post-Brexit global Britain, but not a global, friendly and constructive Britain, of course, but one that is on the offensive, quotes, projecting force globally. Indeed, it can be summarised as an attack document. It makes much of Britain being Western Europe's most heavily armed nation, of its leadership role in NATO and its deploying of forces worldwide. Britain is ready to deter, it says, and to defeat if necessary. Its determination to defend democracy against systemic competition, shaping a supposed new open international order, is absolutely a leaf out of the US book, which is now, of course, the NATO book too. And there is much in the document that is reminiscent of the strategies and postures of the former Trump administration. The key strategic shift in the document lies in its focus on the Indo-Pacific region, as it calls it. It's described as a tilt. This includes the Indian Ocean and its two key powers, India and Australia, along with the UK and Japan and others, as a network of regional allies against China. And this, of course, very clearly mirrors the US Quad approach. While the document describes Russia as the most acute threat to Britain, China is clearly the main strategic focus. The review also includes a major announcement on nuclear weapons, with a 40% increase in the UK's nuclear weapons stockpile from around 200 to 260. This reverses 3 decades of gradual reductions in the UK's nuclear arsenal. And it's at odds with the renewal of the New START treaty recently by Presidents Biden and Putin, which continues bilateral nuclear weapons reductions between the two countries. And in essence, what it means is that the UK is starting a new nuclear arms race. The review also includes a change in Britain's nuclear use posture. Britain now reserves the right to use nuclear weapons not only against nuclear threats, but against supposedly comparable threats, such as chemical and biological weapons or emerging technologies. This is widely understood to really lower the bar for nuclear weapons use. The previous announcement of the deployment this year of a British and Allied carrier strike group heading to the South China Sea via the Mediterranean and Middle East was reinforced. It will feature the Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier, and it is described as the UK's most ambitious global deployment for 2 decades. The review also includes new combat planes, Predator drones, and the expansion of military activities, notably the National Cyber Force with attack capability, the Artificial Intelligence Centre, the RAF Space Command, with the first rocket launch due in 2022. So the policies outlined in this review constitute nuclear rearmament, dangerous military expansionism across a vast range of platforms and sectors, and a significant strategic reorientation, joining the US and NATO in hostility towards China. It's a ramping up of aggressive UK posturing that can only contribute to global instability. The peace movement in Britain is working to oppose these developments and to reverse government policies. And some of our forthcoming areas of activity include building civil society opposition to the aircraft carrier strike group going to the South China Sea, building a counter summit to NATO's next projected summit, probably in Brussels in June this year, and also mobilizing opposition to the G7 meeting, which will also have an anti-China orientation and is being held in June in the UK. So there's much to do, and we look forward to working with all organisations possible to secure our aims of a peaceful world. Thank you.